The people laughing the loudest are usually the ones who miss the most important detail. The annual Sterling Motors Heritage Exhibition attracted collectors, investors, executives, and automotive journalists from across the country. Under the bright lights of the main exhibition hall, some of the rarest luxury vehicles ever built stood on display behind velvet ropes. Cameras flashed. Conversations echoed across polished marble floors. Wealth and status seemed to fill every corner of the building. Near the center of the crowd stood Victoria Sterling, the 36-year-old CEO of Sterling Motors. Her family name appeared on buildings, dealerships, and charitable foundations throughout the state. Confident, intelligent, and accustomed to being the most important person in the room, Victoria commanded attention without even trying. Beside her sat the problem that had frustrated her company for nearly 6 months. A deep midnight blue Rolls-Royce Phantom rested beneath showroom lighting. The vehicle looked flawless. Yet nobody could make it run properly. Factory technicians had inspected it. Independent specialists had inspected it. Luxury restoration experts had inspected it. Every attempt ended the same way. Failure. The crowd listened as Victoria discussed the mystery with several reporters. Then her attention shifted toward a man standing quietly near the rear of the gathering. Noah Bennett looked completely out of place among the tailored suits and expensive watches. At 43 years old, the single father wore a simple work jacket and jeans. His hands carried the marks of years spent repairing engines. Most people assumed he was part of the maintenance crew. Noah seemed unconcerned by what anyone thought. He was studying the Rolls-Royce. Not admiring it. Studying it. Victoria noticed. "You seem interested in the car," she said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Several people turned toward Noah. He glanced at her and nodded politely. "It is an interesting problem." A few executives exchanged amused smiles. Victoria folded her arms. "Interesting," she repeated. 12 engineers have failed to solve it." Noah looked back at the vehicle. "That does not mean the answer is complicated." A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. Victoria's smile widened. "Is that so?" She took a few steps closer. "Tell you what. Fix my Rolls-Royce and you can marry my daughter." The room erupted with laughter. Reporters grinned. Investors chuckled into their drinks. Someone nearly dropped a camera trying not to laugh. Noah did not. He simply looked at the car again. The reaction confused Victoria for a moment. Most people would have been embarrassed. Defensive. Angry. Noah appeared none of those things. Instead, his attention remained fixed on a specific section near the rear passenger side. His expression changed slightly. Not surprise. Recognition. As though he had noticed something nobody else had. Victoria followed his gaze but saw nothing unusual. "Well?" she asked. Noah finally looked at her. "Who was the last person to work on it before the problem started?" The question caught her off guard. "Why?" Noah glanced back toward the Rolls-Royce. The crowd waited. "Because I do not think the real problem is inside the engine." For the first time that afternoon, the laughter stopped. And standing beneath the showroom lights, Noah Bennett continued staring at the car with the calm focus of a man who had just found the first piece of a much larger secret. The crowd slowly drifted back toward conversations and photographs, but the mood around the Rolls-Royce had changed. What had started as entertainment now carried a trace of curiosity. Several reporters remained nearby, hoping to hear more. Victoria Sterling stood beside the car with her arms crossed. She was not accustomed to people dismissing months of expert analysis with a single observation. Yet something about Noah Bennett's certainty bothered her. Not because he sounded arrogant. Quite the opposite. He sounded like a man describing the weather. Calm. Matter of fact. Uninterested in impressing anyone. You think every engineer missed something? Victoria asked. Noah glanced at the rear passenger door again. I think they were looking where they expected the problem to be. One of the restoration specialists stepped forward. The vehicle has been inspected. Repeatedly. Noah nodded. I am sure it has. The specialist frowned slightly. Then what exactly are you suggesting? Noah walked slowly around the Rolls-Royce. He did not touch anything. He simply observed. The showroom lights reflected across the flawless paintwork. To everyone else, the vehicle looked perfect. Noah eventually stopped near the rear quarter panel. Who authorized the last restoration work? Victoria hesitated. Why does that matter? Because someone wanted attention focused on the engine. The answer produced several confused looks. Before anyone could continue questioning him, Noah stepped back. I would need time with the vehicle. Victoria studied him carefully. The confidence remained. No sales pitch. No attempt to negotiate. Just a simple statement. How much time? She asked. A few days. One investor laughed quietly. The factory could not solve it in 6 months. Noah looked at him. Then they probably spent 6 months looking in the wrong direction. The investor fell silent. Something in Noah's expression discouraged further argument. Later that evening, nearly 20 miles away from the exhibition hall, Noah unlocked the doors of Bennett Automotive. The garage occupied a modest brick building between a hardware store and a tire shop. The sign above the entrance was old but clean. Inside, the familiar smell of motor oil, metal, and machinery filled the air. It was not glamorous. It was home. Noah switched on the lights and immediately noticed a small figure sitting at his workbench. Emma Bennett looked up from her homework and smiled. You are late. Noah smiled back. I know. His 10-year-old daughter closed a notebook and climbed down from the stool. Big day? She asked. Noah set his keys on the counter. Interesting day. Emma narrowed her eyes. That means something strange happened. Noah laughed softly. Emma had inherited the same habit of observation that often got him into trouble. Maybe. She followed him toward the office. Was it another customer who thought they knew more than you? Something like that. Emma seemed satisfied with the answer. After a few minutes, Noah prepared dinner in the small apartment attached to the garage. The routine felt familiar. Comfortable. Yet his thoughts kept returning to the Rolls-Royce. Not because of the challenge. Challenges never interested him for long. It was the detail near the rear passenger section. The one nobody else appeared to notice. After Emma went to finish her homework, Noah returned to the garage alone. The evening had grown quiet. Outside, traffic moved through the streets under fading sunlight. Noah sat at his desk and reviewed photographs he had taken earlier. One image stopped him. He zoomed in. Then zoomed in again. For the first time all day, his expression changed. The mark was small. Almost invisible. Hidden beneath a restoration panel where no one would casually look. Yet it should not have been there. Noah stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he quietly said 3 words to the empty garage. That makes no sense. Most mysteries begin with a missing piece. This one began with a piece that should never have existed in the first place. Noah Bennett remained in the garage long after the rest of the neighborhood had gone quiet. The overhead lights cast pale reflections across rows of tools and equipment. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. On the computer screen in front of him, the enlarged photograph filled nearly the entire display. He studied the image again. Then once more. The mark hidden beneath the restoration panel was small enough that most technicians would never notice it. Yet Noah had spent more than 20 years learning that the smallest details often told the biggest stories. The symbol did not belong on a Rolls-Royce. More importantly, it did not belong anywhere near a vehicle that had supposedly remained under the exclusive care of certified restoration experts. Noah opened another photograph. Then another. Slowly, a pattern began forming. Someone had removed a section of the vehicle years earlier. Not for repairs. Not for maintenance. For access. The realization unsettled him more than he expected. The next morning began before sunrise. Noah was already at the garage when a transport truck delivered the Rolls-Royce. Victoria Sterling had agreed to let him inspect the vehicle. For 72 hours. She had done so reluctantly. The media attention surrounding the exhibition had made refusing difficult. As the truck departed, Noah walked around the vehicle in silence. The Rolls-Royce looked exactly as it had the previous day. Elegant. Immaculate. Expensive. Yet the more he examined it, the less he trusted what he was seeing. Several hours passed. He removed nothing. Adjusted nothing. He simply observed. Around noon, Emma arrived carrying 2 sandwiches and a science textbook. "You forgot lunch again," she said. Noah smiled. "I had a feeling someone would remind me." Emma looked toward the Rolls-Royce. "Is that the famous car?" "Apparently." She walked around it once. "It looks normal." Noah laughed softly. "That is usually when you should pay attention." Emma narrowed her eyes. "That sounds like something you tell customers." "Because it is true." While Emma worked on homework nearby, Noah continued examining the rear passenger section. Eventually he crouched beside the vehicle and ran his fingers along a narrow seam hidden beneath interior trim. Something felt wrong. Not broken. Wrong. As though one component had been installed by a completely different person from everyone else who worked on the car. Noah retrieved a flashlight. Seconds later, he froze. There it was again. The same symbol. Hidden deeper inside. Deliberately concealed. His expression hardened. This was no accident. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to hide evidence of a modification. Yet the modification itself appeared strangely old. Years old. Emma looked up from her textbook. "Did you find something?" Noah remained silent for a moment. "Maybe. Engine problem?" He shook his head. "That would be easier." Emma frowned. "Then what is it?" Noah looked at the vehicle. For the first time since accepting the challenge, he was no longer thinking about mechanical failure. He was thinking about motive. Why would someone secretly alter a luxury vehicle? Why hide the evidence? Why spend years making sure nobody found it? Questions continued circling through his mind. Then his phone rang. The screen displayed a name. Victoria Sterling. Noah answered. "Mr. Bennett." Her voice sounded controlled, but something underneath it felt different. Less confident than before. "Have you learned anything?" Noah glanced toward the hidden symbol one more time. "I have learned that your car is probably not the real problem." Silence filled the line. Then Victoria quietly asked the question he had been waiting for. "What exactly does that mean?" Victoria Sterling did not answer immediately. The silence on the phone stretched for several seconds. Noah could almost hear her reconsidering every assumption she had made about the situation. Finally she spoke. "You are telling me the vehicle was intentionally altered?" Noah leaned against the workbench and looked toward the Rolls-Royce. "I am telling you someone wanted attention focused on the wrong problem." Another pause followed. "Can you prove that?" Victoria asked. "Not yet." The honesty seemed to surprise her. Most experts she dealt with preferred certainty. Noah preferred facts. Then what do you need? She asked. Noah glanced at the hidden seam again. Access to the restoration records. Every version. Not just the official ones. Her tone sharpened slightly. There are no unofficial records. Noah said nothing. The silence itself became an answer. Several hours later a black sedan arrived outside Bennett Automotive. Victoria stepped out carrying a thin leather portfolio. For the first time since meeting her, Noah saw no trace of amusement in her expression. Curiosity had replaced it. Concern was beginning to appear as well. Inside the garage, she placed the portfolio on the workbench. Everything we have. Noah opened it. Service reports. Ownership documents. Inspection records. Insurance filings. Most appeared routine. Then he noticed something unusual. A 3-year gap. Not missing pages. Missing history. Noah looked up. What happened here? Victoria frowned. Where? He turned the folder toward her. 3 years. No maintenance records. No storage reports. Nothing. Victoria studied the pages. That cannot be right. Noah watched her reaction carefully. She seemed genuinely surprised. That interested him. People protecting secrets rarely looked confused when they encountered them. Victoria looked through the documents again. The vehicle belonged to my father before me. Noah nodded slowly. And after he passed away? The estate handled everything. Noah said nothing. The answer explained more than she realized. Late that afternoon, after Victoria left, Noah continued his inspection. This time he focused entirely on the hidden modification. The discovery took nearly 2 hours. Carefully removing a concealed interior panel, he exposed a narrow compartment built into the structure of the vehicle. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. Whoever created it knew exactly what they were doing. Most technicians would never find it. Noah reached inside. His fingers touched metal. Not an automotive component. Something else. He slowly withdrew a small brass key. The object rested in his palm beneath the garage lights. Old. Deliberately hidden. Not connected to the operation of the vehicle in any way. Noah stared at it. Then he looked back into the compartment. There was something else. Folded deep inside. A sealed envelope yellowed by age. His expression hardened. The Rolls-Royce had never been the mystery. It had been the hiding place. At that exact moment, Emma entered from the office carrying a notebook. Dad? Noah did not answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the envelope. Emma followed his gaze. What is that? Noah carefully removed the envelope and turned it over. A handwritten name appeared across the front in faded ink. The moment he read it, every assumption he had made about Victoria Sterling and her family began to change. Because the name written on the envelope was not Victoria Sterling. The garage felt unusually quiet after Emma returned to the office. Noah Bennett remained standing beside the Rolls-Royce, holding the envelope in one hand and the brass key in the other. For a long moment he did nothing. Years of experience had taught him that rushing toward an answer often meant missing the truth hidden around it. The faded handwriting on the envelope was clear enough to read. The name belonged to a man called Daniel Sterling. Noah had never heard the name before, yet one detail immediately stood out. Victoria Sterling's father had been named Richard Sterling. The envelope should have belonged to him. Instead, it carried the name of someone entirely different. Noah carefully placed the key on the workbench before opening the envelope. Inside was a folded document and a single photograph. He looked at the photograph first. 3 people stood together beside the very same Rolls-Royce many years earlier. A younger Richard Sterling appeared on one side. Standing beside him was an unfamiliar man in his 40s. Between them stood a young girl. Noah stared at the image. The girl looked remarkably familiar. Not because of who she was. Because of who she resembled. He reached for his phone and opened a recent news article featuring Victoria Sterling. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The same eyes. The same facial structure. The same smile. Yet the photograph had been taken decades ago. Noah unfolded the document next. It appeared to be part of a legal declaration. Time had yellowed the paper, but several lines remained readable. One sentence immediately caught his attention. Ownership rights and succession protections shall remain with the designated heir identified herein. Noah frowned. The page ended abruptly. The remaining sections were missing. Someone had removed them long ago. At that moment his phone rang. Victoria Sterling. Noah answered. "Did you find the mechanical problem?" she asked. Noah looked toward the Rolls-Royce. "Yes." Silence followed. "And?" "The engine was never the real issue." Victoria exhaled slowly. "You keep saying that." Noah glanced at the photograph again. "Because it keeps being true." Several seconds passed. Then Victoria surprised him. "Can I come by?" Noah hesitated. "Tonight?" "Yes." Her voice sounded different now. Less like a chief executive. More like someone searching for an answer she had been missing for years. 2 hours later a black sedan pulled into the parking lot. Victoria stepped into the garage carrying no assistants, no lawyers, and no corporate confidence. She looked tired. Noah placed the photograph on the workbench. Victoria approached and froze. Her eyes widened the moment she saw it. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. Noah studied her carefully. This was not the reaction of someone protecting a secret. This was the reaction of someone discovering one. "Do you know the man standing next to your father?" Noah asked. Victoria stared at the photograph. "That is impossible." "What is?" Her eyes remained fixed on the image. "I have never seen this photograph before." Noah felt a chill move through him. If Victoria had never seen it, then whoever hid it inside the Rolls-Royce never intended for her to find it. Victoria slowly reached toward the picture. Her hand trembled slightly. Then she looked up at Noah. "The man beside my father," she said quietly. "His name was Daniel Sterling. He was my uncle. And according to my family, he disappeared 30 years ago." Victoria Sterling remained motionless beside the workbench. The photograph rested between her and Noah like a piece of evidence from another life. Outside, rain continued tapping softly against the garage windows. For several moments neither of them spoke. Finally Victoria pulled a nearby stool closer and sat down. "My grandfather never talked about Daniel," she said quietly. "Neither did my father. The only thing anyone ever said was that he left the family and disappeared." Noah studied her expression. There was no sign of deception. No carefully managed corporate confidence. Only confusion. "Did anyone ever explain why?" he asked. Victoria shook her head. "Whenever I asked, the conversation ended." Noah looked down at the partial document again. The missing pages bothered him more than the photograph. Pictures created questions. Documents created answers. And someone had removed the most important answers. Victoria noticed the brass key lying beside the envelope. "What does that open?" Noah turned the key in his hand. "That is what I want to know." At that moment Emma stepped into the garage carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate. She immediately sensed the change in atmosphere. Did something happen? Noah accepted one of the cups. "We found more questions." Emma looked at Victoria. That usually means Dad found something important. Victoria managed a faint smile. It was the first time Noah had seen her smile without calculation behind it. Later that evening, after Emma returned upstairs, Noah carefully examined the key under a magnifying lamp. A small engraving appeared near the base. The symbol matched the one hidden inside the Rolls-Royce. Beneath it was a short sequence of numbers. Victoria leaned closer. What does that mean? Noah reached for the restoration records. Several storage facility references appeared throughout the documents. Most were routine. One was not. The numbers engraved on the key matched part of an old warehouse identification code located on property once owned by the Sterling family. Noah looked up. I think this key was never meant to stay inside the car forever. Victoria frowned. Then why hide it there? Noah glanced toward the photograph. Maybe because someone expected the right person to find it eventually. The answer settled heavily over the room. Victoria looked away. You keep talking as though my family was hiding something. Noah chose his words carefully. I think someone in your family was trying to preserve something. That distinction mattered. The more he learned, the less this felt like a conspiracy and the more it felt like a message left behind. Victoria slowly nodded. For the first time since the exhibition, she was no longer defending her assumptions. She was questioning them. Noah gathered the photograph, the document fragment, and the key. The pieces finally seemed connected. Not completely. But enough to reveal a direction. Before leaving, Victoria stopped at the garage door. Do you think my uncle actually disappeared? Noah looked at the hidden compartment inside the Rolls-Royce. Then at the evidence spread across the workbench. No. Victoria stared at him. Then what happened? Noah's gaze settled on the key. I think someone wanted everyone to believe he disappeared. The garage fell silent. And for the first time since the mystery began, both of them realized the Rolls-Royce had not been hiding a mechanical problem. It had been protecting a family secret for 3 decades. The next morning arrived gray and cold. Low clouds hung over the city while Noah Bennett stood outside an aging warehouse on the industrial edge of town. The building had once belonged to Sterling Holdings decades earlier. Time had not been kind to it. Rust marked the steel doors. Faded paint peeled from the walls. Most people driving past would never look at it twice. Victoria Sterling stepped out of her sedan and looked at the structure. This place has been abandoned for years. Noah held up the brass key. Then nobody should mind if we take a look. Victoria managed a nervous smile. 24 hours earlier she would have dismissed the idea entirely. Now she found herself following a mechanic into a forgotten warehouse because a hidden compartment inside a Rolls-Royce had led them there. The realization would have sounded ridiculous if she had heard it from anyone else. The lock resisted at first. Then the brass key turned. A sharp metallic click echoed through the morning air. Noah pushed the heavy door open. Dust drifted through shafts of sunlight filtering from high windows. The interior smelled of old wood and machinery. Most of the space was empty. Rows of shelves stretched into darkness. Broken equipment sat untouched beneath protective covers. Yet Noah immediately noticed something unusual. Unlike the rest of the warehouse, one section appeared remarkably clean. Victoria saw it too. Someone has been here. Noah nodded. The footprints were faint but visible in the dust. Not recent. Not ancient either. He followed them slowly toward a small office built along the far wall. The door stood slightly open. Inside, a metal filing cabinet occupied one corner. A desk sat beneath the window. Nothing looked valuable. Nothing looked important. Yet the moment Noah saw the cabinet, he knew why the key existed. The second lock matched perfectly. Victoria watched as he inserted the key. Please tell me this is the part where everything finally makes sense. Noah glanced at her. That has not happened yet. The cabinet opened. Inside rested a single storage box. No gold. No cash. No dramatic treasure. Just documents. Hundreds of pages organized with extraordinary care. Noah lifted the first folder. Victoria stepped closer. The room grew silent except for the sound of turning paper. Financial statements. Ownership records. Correspondence. Legal agreements. The deeper they looked, the clearer the picture became. Daniel Sterling had not disappeared. For years he had continued documenting events within the family business. More importantly, he had recorded concerns about company leadership after Richard Sterling assumed control. Victoria's expression darkened as she read. This cannot be right. Noah continued examining the files. What part? She pointed toward a signed memorandum. These signatures. They belong to my father's attorney. Noah looked at the document. Several asset transfers appeared listed. Large ones. Significant ones. Yet one detail stood out immediately. The beneficiary names had been altered. Victoria stared at the page. My father never mentioned any of this. Noah remained calm. Maybe he never saw it. That possibility hit her harder than anything else they had discovered. For the first time, Victoria began questioning not only the story she had been told about her uncle, but the entire history of the Sterling Empire itself. Then Noah opened the final folder in the box. A handwritten letter rested on top. Across the front appeared a message written decades earlier. If anyone finds this, the truth belongs to Victoria. Victoria Sterling stared at the letter for several seconds before finally reaching for it. The paper felt fragile in her hands. Decades had passed since it was written, yet the handwriting remained remarkably clear. Noah Bennett stepped back and allowed her space. This was no longer his family's story. It was hers. Victoria unfolded the pages carefully and began reading. The warehouse seemed to disappear around her. The dust. The shelves. The old filing cabinet. None of it mattered. Only the words. As her eyes moved across the page, her expression slowly changed. Confusion became disbelief. Disbelief became sadness. Then came understanding. Noah remained silent. Several minutes passed before Victoria finally lowered the letter. My uncle did not disappear, she said quietly. Noah nodded. I figured that much. Victoria looked back at the page. He left voluntarily. The answer surprised even her. According to the letter, Daniel Sterling had uncovered irregularities involving several advisors responsible for managing portions of the family estate. He had attempted to challenge their decisions. When those efforts failed, he documented everything he could find and hid the records where he believed they would eventually be discovered. Not by lawyers. Not by executives. By someone he trusted would care about the truth. Victoria's eyes moved to the final paragraph. Her voice softened as she read it aloud. If you are reading this, it means the truth survived longer than I expected. Do not waste your life fighting over what belongs to you. Protect what matters. The rest is only money. The words lingered in the quiet room. Noah looked toward the window. He had heard countless people spend years chasing wealth, status, and recognition. Very few ever sounded like that. Victoria folded the letter carefully. All these years I believed my family built everything exactly as the history books described. Noah glanced toward the storage box filled with documents. History usually depends on who writes it. A faint smile appeared despite the emotion in her eyes. You should have been a teacher. Noah laughed softly. Emma would disagree. At the mention of his daughter, Victoria seemed to remember something. She looked at him differently now. Not as a mechanic. Not as the man she had mocked in front of an audience. But as the person who had solved a mystery that generations of executives, attorneys, and consultants never noticed. The realization seemed to humble her. "You could have stopped after fixing the car," she said. Noah shrugged. "The car stopped being the problem a long time ago." Victoria looked around the warehouse one final time. For years she had believed she understood her family's legacy. Now she realized she had inherited only part of the story. Yet strangely, she did not feel defeated. She felt relieved. Because for the first time, the missing pieces finally existed. As they gathered the documents and prepared to leave, Noah noticed one final item at the bottom of the box. A small leather notebook. He handed it to Victoria. She opened the cover and froze. Inside was a photograph of Daniel Sterling standing beside a much younger Richard Sterling. Both men were smiling. No anger. No rivalry. No sign of the conflict that later divided the family. Tucked behind the photograph was a final note written in the same handwriting. Victoria read it silently. Then she looked up at Noah. "There is one more thing my uncle wanted me to know." Noah studied her expression. "What is it?" Victoria carefully folded the note and placed it back inside the notebook. "The person responsible for everything was never my father." 3 weeks later, the annual Sterling Motors shareholders conference filled the largest ballroom in the city. Executives, investors, journalists, and industry leaders occupied hundreds of seats beneath crystal chandeliers. For years the event had been a celebration of growth, prestige, and corporate success. This year felt different. Rumors had spread throughout the business community. Questions had surfaced. Historical records once believed lost had suddenly reappeared. Yet very few people knew how any of it had happened. Victoria Sterling stood at the podium reviewing her notes while conversations echoed across the room. Then her eyes moved toward the back row. Noah Bennett sat quietly beside Emma. He wore the same simple jacket he had worn the day they first met. Nothing about him suggested he had helped uncover the truth behind one of the most important discoveries in the company's history. Emma noticed Victoria looking their way and waved enthusiastically. Victoria smiled and waved back. The meeting began. Financial reports were presented. Strategic plans were reviewed. Then Victoria stepped forward for the final address. The room gradually fell silent. She took a breath and looked across the audience. 3 weeks ago, she began, I believed I understood the history of my family and this company. The ballroom grew still. Victoria continued. I was wrong. Several executives exchanged uneasy glances. She spoke calmly. No anger. No accusations. Only facts. The recovered records had revealed decades-old decisions made by advisors who no longer held influence. Corrective actions had already begun. Ownership matters had been resolved. Historical records had been restored. Most importantly, the truth had finally been preserved. When she finished explaining the changes, a shareholder stood. Who found the documents? Victoria looked toward the back of the room. Hundreds of people followed her gaze. Noah immediately looked as though he wished he were somewhere else. Emma smiled proudly beside him. Victoria answered without hesitation. A mechanic. Soft laughter moved through the audience. Then Victoria continued. A mechanic who noticed what everyone else missed. The laughter disappeared. While experts examined engines, financial reports, and legal archives, he paid attention to a detail hidden in plain sight. The room remained silent. Noah lowered his eyes slightly. He never enjoyed attention. Victoria smiled. Sometimes the most valuable person in the room is the one nobody thinks to listen to. Applause began slowly, then spread throughout the ballroom. Noah looked genuinely uncomfortable. Emma looked delighted. After the conference ended, people approached Noah one after another. Executives, investors, reporters. He answered politely but briefly. Eventually he escaped the crowd and headed toward the parking lot. Emma hurried beside him. "You are famous now." Noah laughed. "I hope not. Victoria thinks you are a hero." "Victoria is being generous." Emma looked up at him. "I think she is being accurate." Noah shook his head and unlocked his pickup truck. At that moment another vehicle pulled into the lot. Victoria stepped out carrying a small package. She handed it to Noah. Inside was the restored brass key mounted within a simple display frame. Beneath it appeared a small engraved plaque. Noah read the inscription. "The man who looked closer." He smiled. "You did not have to do this." Victoria glanced toward Emma. "Actually, I did." For a moment all three stood together in the afternoon sunlight. The mystery was over. The Rolls-Royce had been repaired. The truth had been found. Yet the thing Noah valued most was waiting somewhere else entirely. A few hours later he sat at the kitchen table helping Emma finish a school project while the framed key rested quietly on a nearby shelf. Outside, the world continued chasing wealth, status, and recognition. Inside, a father listened carefully as his daughter explained her homework. And for Noah Bennett, that was more than enough.